So great, guys. Again, welcome to yet another interesting afternoon, Saturday afternoon. And this topic today is going to be how to analyze equity mutual funds. The last time I started doing on 16th of January, I had the topic was how to analyze mutual funds. I thought I'd analyze both equity and debt, but it's such a vast topic, you can't cover it in 1.5 hours. So I'll just focus on the equity mutual funds for this session. And subsequently in coming weeks, probably we can look at how to analyze debt mutual funds as well. So that's the basically next agenda for not next week, but maybe after a couple of weeks. Quickly, so equity mutual funds currently one of the most sought after instruments to invest for people who have not much knowledge, who do not have much knowledge or skill or the time to analyze the direct stocks. And for me, what I see mutual funds is that mutual funds is nothing but you outsource your investments into equities or debt, whatever, or gold. Mutual funds exist for all the asset classes. You outsource your to fund managers who are the experts in this field, because they have large teams set up, they have research analysts, they have access to the management. And of course, you sitting in your house will obviously not have these kind of luxuries, right? So if you are going to do direct stocks, you are going to put in some of your analysis, if you are good, financial ratios and management commentaries, whatever is available in public domain. But in India, you understand, right? So there is a lot of things that you need that kind of an understanding. As market is so volatile, whatever is happening in the news, are you able to track all? Let's say you have a portfolio of 20 stocks. Are you able to track all the 20 stocks, the news related to it on a day-to-day time, minute-to-minute basis? Because if some results are coming, some news-specific things are coming, some global events are happening, the stocks just move up and down very violently. And the behavioral biases actually put in a lot of issues for people to keep managing their direct stock portfolio. So if you have time, if you have skill, do it. I am not saying that go to mutual fund route, but if you do not, then to build your wealth over kind of a longer period, mutual funds sahi hai, right? So I mean that's something which you should be investing into. Here today we'll discuss that there are a lot of mutual funds now. I mean, only in large cap, if you see, there would be plenty of schemes. And the basic question which I keep getting is which mutual funds to invest in. I mean, every day on the Telegram group, so whosoever in the Telegram group might know, right? Every second day, there is a question someone is asking that, okay, I'm going to start earning from next month or next year, or I just started earning, but I do not know where to invest, which mutual funds to invest into, passive, active, index funds, which all in mid cap, which all in small cap, flexi cap, multi cap, thematics. Hundreds of categories that these guys have made, right? Not hundreds, but there are at least, I think in equities, there are around 9 or 10 categories: hybrid, balanced, advantage, this and that. How do you make your portfolio? See, a lot of things I covered in asset allocation session last week. So in case you want to go back to YouTube, go back to that session, you can hear that as well, how to, kind of pick the adequate number of mutual funds to put in your portfolio. So that's one. Remaining, let's discuss today, and we'll cover a little bit of theory, and then we'll switch on to the practical aspect of it. I'll show you how to go to research, Morningstar.in, value research online, couple of more websites where you can, do it yourself kind of a stuff. So let me just share my screen with you. First of all, a 10-minute boring class on the presentation, because let me just set some mahal, right? Okay, keep writing your questions in the chat as usual. So guys, investment products, as you know, this slide would be seen by lot of you guys. I keep using it. Just concentrate on the equities side, the middle table. In order to get exposure to kind of equities, you have direct stocks, then you have these. I've just written 5 of them. There are more of them, like as I told you, flexi cap, multi cap, balance, hybrid, and all. Then you have PMSs. PMSs basically have a minimum ticket size of 50 lakhs. So I am not very sure if the audience in this webinar will be looking to invest in a PMS. But if yes, you can connect with me separately. ESOPs are there. If someone is working in a startup, then obviously the ESOPs help. ESOPs are employee stock option plan, which is basically it's called options, but then obviously you get equity of the company. So that's one thing. Unlisted stocks, of course, no need to explain. Angel investing, and then there are structured products. Structured products are again HNI products, basically given to someone minimum ticket size of 50 lakhs or 1 CR. So that's the thing. I'm just ignoring the fixed income and the alternatives for this class, and the returns which I have mentioned is very arbitrary, random, and anyways this slide was made somewhere like in January, so returns might have changed anyways. So okay, just few questions. Will this be uploaded on YouTube? That is what I've been telling. Yes, I will be uploading this on YouTube. What is a PMS? PMS is a portfolio management service, is the full form. It is something which is for minimum ticket size is 50 lakhs, and it is kind of a customized portfolios which you get, and stocks are directly credited to your demat account. And people who are, mutual funds are actually generalized products. I mean, I can also buy a mutual fund. You are also buying the same mutual fund. Let's say we are both buying Axis Mid Cap. Right now, Axis Mid Cap, I will also get the same thing. You will also get the same thing, and thousands and lakhs and crores of people are going to get the same thing. But HNIs are, kind of wealthy people. They say, I don't want to get clubbed into like lakhs and crores of people, right? I want some specialized services. So they opt for PMS because PMS, they get kind of a customized portfolios, not exactly customized, but at least they get that kind of personalized guidance, approach, and service from the team of the portfolio manager. Generally, PMS guys, whosoever is running the fund manager of a PMS is highly experienced. He might have worked in a mutual fund before, and after 15-20 years of his career, he might have thought, let me do something of my own because I've become much popular. And he might start his own PMS, and then PMS fees are also pretty on a higher side. The HNIs won't mind paying a 2.5% because then they are assuring that they get a higher kind of returns like 24%, right? So these are all things. The regulations wise, PMSs have lenient regulations from SEBI. Mutual funds have stricter regulations, and that is what make PMS returns a little higher. Anyways, moving ahead, and I'm not seeing any questions now, so I just happen to see these ones. Why mutual funds? I've already explained that basically you are outsourcing your job to a fund manager who is more capable, has more time. His primary job is that, and when you are outsourcing something, you are paying something to him, right? Free में तो कोई नहीं करेगा. So whatever you pay to him is called the expense ratio. Expense ratio, you guys understand, because even at 0.2 or 0.3% difference of expense ratio, you will shun a mutual fund. Generally, I've seen people like, uska expense ratio 0.8% है, uska 0.5% है. I won't take 0.8% because obviously it is 0.3% higher. I mean, guys, this is not the only criteria to look into a mutual fund. Anyways, I'm going to cover this later on. So that's the thing. Mutual fund can be categorized into 4 different buckets. I mean, it's not like one of them, but in each of the column, you just pick up one: equity, fixed income, and hybrid. Open-ended or closed-ended. Now, I don't need to explain equity, fixed income, and hybrid. We are talking about equities over here as an asset class for the mutual funds. Open-ended or closed-ended. So, guys, open-ended is a mutual fund where you can put in money anytime and withdraw anytime. But closed-ended will open only for a certain period of time. Let's say for 10 days, 15 days, and they will say, okay, now the fund is locked in, and only after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you will be able to withdraw your money when we are done. With this kind of thing that works on a theme mostly. Closed-ended funds are mostly thematic because they will say, okay, next 3 years we see, for example, auto sector doing good. So some fund house will launch an auto fund and say that this is locked in. I would never suggest guys go for an closed-ended. I would always say go for an open-ended. You don't want to get restricted by anybody to get your funds locked in. I just hate lock-in products, to be honest, except for real assets. And that is the reason I also do not like NPS, but that is one thing which we can discuss in personal taxation session. So go for open-ended always. And these days, for the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've seen closed-ended funds are getting out of fashion also, because a lot of people are getting financially literate and they know that closed-ended funds are very unlikely to give great returns, right? Because 3 years down the line, who has seen the cycles where they are turning up? The third is regular or direct. Now, this is very important. Regular will, so there's a difference between the commission of it. So regular or a direct will have a difference in the expense ratios. What is expense ratios? The fees which is getting deducted from your investment and which gets paid to some intermediaries or the end. So who is the intermediary? Intermediary is the broker or the distributor. So if you buy it through your Demat account, let's say you have a Demat account with ICICIdirect.com, your Demat account with MotilalOswal.com. These are full service brokers and generally they generally do not they do not provide a direct fund. So if you kind of segregate your your expenses into two baskets. So one is going to your distributor or a broker, and the other leg is going to your AMC. AMC is the fund manager and his team who is actually managing your money. Ultimately, you can remove the distributor or the broker from this leg, but you still need to pay to the AMC, right? Because they are the guys who are managing your money and giving you hopefully superlative returns or great returns. So if the money is directly going, and if you're directly buying it from the AMC, you only pay a little lesser expense ratio, which is only to the AMC. But if you're going it through a regular fund approach, you also pay to the broker or the distributor. Now, someone will ask that what is the benefit, what is the advantage with the kind of extra service which broker is giving to me. So there are services which is being given to people if they kind of opt for these kind of a thing, that sometimes reports are generated if the broker is good, and some personalized advice will be given. Advice is used to be given, but after a SEBI regulation of November 2020, the advice is also not being provided, and hence these discount brokerage firms like Zerodha and Grow and Upstocks and all of these guys have come, Paytm Money, that they are saying that okay, we are only going to provide direct mutual funds to you. Now you'll ask that what are they making out of it, right? Because they are acting as a broker or a distributor, but they are actually ignoring or kind of shedding their expenses. So yes, they are not making money on these, but the way MFI, the way SEBI has come up with promoting direct mutual funds, a lot of people are moving towards direct. And my suggestion to you guys is always try to go for a direct fund, because even if there is a difference of a 0.8 or 2.9 or 1% between a regular and a direct fund, if you compound it over 10 years period, 15 years period, guys, please be on mute, whosoever is not there. Kiran Kumar, please. Sorry, guys. Right. So okay. So if you compound that 1% over, kind of a 10-year period or 15-year period, you'll see a lot of difference, which you probably can make. And what is the effort that you are going to put? Right? You just need to either open an account with these discount brokerage firms. Personally, what I do is I go to each and every website, kotakmf.com, ICICImf.com, mireassetmf.com, and I do it directly through the AMC website. The only disadvantage over there is that you need to keep a track of all these things somewhere, because you need to keep logging into different kind of AMCs, and then you need to know which SIP is going when. So you saw last time in the last webinar, right, that I maintain that Excel, but you can also download reports from NSDL, CAS report, CAS report, which will give you an idea as to where you are and how much your investment is made. But you definitely every month or every quarterly, you keep an eye on it, whether whatever you have invested in it is actually reflecting in those statements or not. I actually do it quarterly. I do check NSDL, CDSL and CAS statements and all every quarter, and I match it with my Excel. If my Excel and that data matches, then I am fine, because obviously at my local end and at their local end, at their end, things are matching. So my money is actually safe over there. So I would suggest do that. The last category is growth or dividend. Dividend is further classified into distribution, reinvestment. These things are, this is a little outdated, because now dividend scheme is now called income ICDW. I don't remember the exact full form. Income, if someone remembers, just put it on a chat. IDCW or ICDW. So basically what happens is, if your money is kept reinvesting into the fund, it's called growth, and if you keep getting some money out of it like a dividend, it's a dividend kind of a fund, right? So basically I would just suggest go for a growth. There's no point going for a dividend. Now the dividends are also fully taxed in the hands of investors, and it's basically nothing. It's not you are getting anything extra. You are only getting it some money which was in the fund and which would be in the future compounded. You're just getting it out and taking it out. many old people will actually need some money for their, kind of expenses and all. So they opt for a monthly dividend, quarterly dividend, so that they keep getting some money out of their mutual fund savings, mutual fund holdings. But then there is also a mechanism called SWP, which is your systematic withdrawal plan, where you can keep withdrawing certain amount of money every month. So I would rather suggest, even for those old people, there's no point getting into dividend funds, the dividend schemes. You can do the similar kind of stuff from setting up an SWP. You guys might know what an SIP is, of course, but SWP is entire opposite of it. SIP, you keep on investing something. SWP, you are keep on withdrawing the similar kind of amount, whatever that amount is. Again, just look at the equities side, large cap, mid cap, small cap. It's the same thing that we had discussed over there in the previous slide. Multi cap, value, thematic, index, ETF, arbitrage, ELSs. Again, not the entire list, but a little broader list. And the question is SIP, keep on investing some money on every particular day, date, or with a set frequency, right? Every Monday or every 5th of the month. If you invest in a mutual fund, equity mutual fund, that's called an SIP. And I always suggest go for an SIP only, because you never know equity markets, right? Sometimes you may invest at 15,800 thinking, okay, market is anyways going to go to 17,000, and it corrects to 15,500 and now probably much lower. So when you stagger it through an SIP, you are actually balancing your kind of average price out, because you are putting in, let's say, 10,000 every month in a fund, and then 10,000 divided by the NAV, you are getting that number of units. So if the units fall down, if the NAV falls down, you get more number of units. If the market is going up, you get less number of units. One month, 2 months, 3 months, you will feel, I am only investing at the highs, because for the last 12, 14 months, what is happening? The market is only going up. So many times, many people have said, yaar, isse to achha thi, April mein dal dete pura. But did you know in April last year what would happen? The best thing is just keep on averaging, and market is not going to keep going up unidirectionally for 10 years, 15 years. It has to correct. And when it starts correcting, then you start getting more and more units for that same kind of money. So that's SIP. Always do an SIP is what I would suggest. STP is another thing where, it used to be much in fashion and, kind of more sought after than SIP when pre-COVID, basically, because in the savings bank account, your money is kept, your salary comes on every, let's say, last day of the month, 31st of the month or whatever. And then you get only 4% on your savings account. But prior to COVID-19, March 2020 or Feb 2020, the interest rates, the rate of returns expected rate of returns from your liquid funds, arbitrage funds, and all these, kind of debt funds used to be around 5 to 6%. So generally, I would say, I would tell people that if you get a bonus, generally bonuses are received in the month of March or May, depending upon the company you're working with. Don't put every penny of your bonus, and see, if you're getting a salary, you can easily do an SIP. But if you're getting a bonus in bulk, you're always confused कि इतना पैसा एक साथ डालना चाहिए क्या. So I would suggest put all your money into a liquid fund or an kind of a duration fund, ultra short term duration or a short term duration, and then keep on switching that money into an equity fund. So rather than from your savings account, you are putting that money from a fund which is earning higher than savings account. But these days, what has happened, guys, is savings account is giving you what, 3.5 to 4%, and these funds are also giving you around 4.5%. So it's not much of a difference. The second thing what these guys have done is, SEBI has done is, initially it used to be like immediate day the transaction used to happen. The money used to go out from a fund and get invested into the equity fund on the same date. But now, after February 2021, this rule has also been relaxed. So it's basically not the same day that it is going. Sometimes it takes 1 day in case of a liquid fund, as its settlement is T+1. And if you are putting it through an arbitrage fund, it goes T+3 days. So the advantage is lost, but hassle is also reduced if you do an STP. So I would suggest, if you get a bonus, if you get some money in bulk, after keeping your some kind of a money in emergency, for the emergency purpose in your savings account, move towards a kind of a ultra short duration or a low duration or a short duration fund, and try doing a staggered approach into equity through an STP. So that's one thing. SWP, I've already explained you. SWP is entirely the opposite of SIP. Actually, STP, if you think about it, STP is nothing but SIP plus SWP, right? So let's say someone at the younger age, he is doing an SIP in a fund, and let's say he does it for 20 years and he becomes 50-year-old and now he is retired and he wants some cash out, and then he starts withdrawing SWP. So that's not actually STP. I mean, STP is generally, withdrawing it from a debt fund and putting it into an equity fund. So it's basically the combination of the two. But SWP is, as you would understand, keep doing your SIP for a few years and then probably keep pulling out your money through SWP once you require that money. STEP, ignore that. STEP was a fancy word back in 6-8 months when I made this slide. Basically, many AMCs are doing some kind of a creative work, and they'll give you an option to kind of double down your SIP amount when the market is going down by 2%, 3%. Sometimes it works for a short duration, but in the long duration, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. But yeah, even if a 1 or 2% or a 1 or 2% in extra over a 10-year period will make a lot of difference. But you never know. It is just creativity using back testing and all. Stay simple. Just keep on doing SIP. Keep on increasing the amount when your salary increases. Now, how I have through SIP, I already discussed. When SIPs can be done every probably week or a month or whatever, and then which is what I'm going to discuss and why. I don't need to explain you now why. I hope everybody is clear about that. Some blazing questions: when to pause, exit a mutual fund scheme, right? The biggest question which probably you might have today: when to redeem the mutual fund holdings? Markets are near all-time high. Should we continue investing in MFs? International MFs, gold, thematic, new age, how to track performance, ideally how many funds should I have in my portfolio. This I had covered in asset allocation, but I again would repeat. I would suggest equity side, just have one index fund. That index fund can be Nifty 50 or Nifty 100. If it is Nifty 50, you can also add Nifty Next 50, or you can directly get into kind of a Nifty 100 fund, right? There, I think Axis Nifty 100 fund is available. Otherwise, I am doing Nifty 50 and Nifty Next 50 personally. So that covers your large cap mostly. For the mid caps, you can have either one or two. If you're very confident on the fund manager, on the fund, then you can put your all eggs in one basket. But mid caps generally, and small caps, I always suggest people to go for 2 small caps, because small caps is very risky and the horizon, the universe is very large. If there are, let's say, 2 or they have to put by the regulations 65% in small cap stocks. What are small cap stocks? Something by market cap if they are ranked 251 and above, right? 252, 253 and all. Those are all small caps. So they have a mandate that 65% of the portfolio should be consisted of these 250 and above, ranked stocks. And there might be a liquid, like there can be 500 such stocks, liquid stocks. Which are traded in the market. I'm not going to like 5,000 stocks are listed, but I'm just saying, imagine only 750 stocks, top 750 are traded. Even then they have a universe of 500 stocks to pick 65% of the portfolio, and the remaining 35% they can pick from rank 1 to rank 250. So they have a huge horizon, and then there can be minimum overlaps in 2 different funds, and you never know which small cap कब फट जाता है, कब अच्छा चलता है. तो generally 2 mid caps to diversify, 2 small caps to diversify, 1 or 2 mid caps and 1 large cap is what into equities you can put in. Then there are other things, like you can put in a couple of international mutual funds which are covering different geographies maybe. And if you are a little kind of skilled and you can see which sector is going to do better now, then you can go for a thematic MFs as well. Although I don't suggest people to go for thematic MFs. If you want to go into a thematic kind of a thing, then don't go for a mutual fund, because there are a lot of hassles over there. If you're going for the thematic mutual fund, I would suggest look at wealth baskets, which I have a lot of times told on the website or on the Telegram group, or small cases as well, if you like some kind of small cases. So through them, you can get an exposure to thematic MS, thematic funds, but then keep in mind to exit timely. Be it WealthDesk actually, kind of try to give an exit call as well. Not many people will do, because that's very risky, how to and when to give exit calls. So that is one thing probably which you can consider. Cool. Now there are 3, this is the last slide. Now there are 3 levels of analysis, right? Depending on what kind of a person you are. Are you a beginner? Do you understand mutual funds properly? If you are a beginner, then only you will generally tend to, and this is like what you tend to analyze. You only look at historical performance, correct? Last 5 years CAGR was this, last 3 years CAGR was this. Now there is a different kind of excitement. People will only compare 1 year CAGR. because last 1 year people have given 100% returns and 110% returns. So people are just fighting 200% returns. बस ऐसे नहीं होता है. I mean, you need to see a CAGR over at least a period of 5 years for equities, right? 5 years में क्या दिया? If the fund is new, look at the back-tested returns. Mutual funds won't give you a back-tested returns, but small cases and wealth baskets will do. So at least 5-7 years historical performance you need to see in order to say that okay, this fund is outperformed consistently. The other thing which beginners generally see is the expense ratio. Expense ratio is 1% or a 0.5% will actually make or break their decisions. Very, very wrong. The third thing which they also have learned to see is the scheme AUM, because there are a lot of stuff, a lot of text going on that okay, if it's a mid cap and if it is above 10,000 crore AUM, then it's not good or bad. It's not good or it's bad or whatever. I'll discuss that point when we come to the practical aspects of it. If you are a medium kind of guy, medium skilled guy, then all these three beginners thing you will probably look at. You will also look at some things like Sharpe ratio, alpha, Jensen's alpha, basically Trainer ratio. So थोड़ा ज़्यादा आता है तुमको beginners से. You will also see standard deviation. Although standard deviation is somehow fed into Sharpe ratios and all, but ठीक है, even if you want to see the risk measure, that also you will want to tend to see. Ranking in their category. Okay, if there are like 50 mid caps, how has this XYZ mid cap has performed over the cycle? ये भी देख लोगे. And then finally the portfolio mix. This is one of the most important things, guys. There are a lot of chats coming in. What are people saying? Okay, normal questions, right? Guys, if my voice is not clear, no. I have muted all of you. Okay, I'll manage. So portfolio mix is one of the most important thing, guys. Portfolio mix would mean that how much money, which is the top stocks, which are the top five stocks, which sector has got the maximum exposure in this fund house. These all things are very important to look if you are a medium or an advanced analytics kind of a person. I would actually expect after this session, you are no more a beginner and you move more towards medium and advanced. Advanced is going to be very difficult for you guys because if you are not from that industry, I am from wealth industry, so I can do a little bit of advanced analysis because I have the resources. A lot of people in the audience won't have those resources, so I would suggest strive for being a medium level analyst for analyzing mutual fund. Advanced will have all the medium plus beginner aspects, but the most important thing which I personally look is the fund manager. Who is managing your money, boss? I mean, is your money being managed by someone who is competent enough, or you are just blindly giving that money to him? This is very difficult to analyze. How would you know your fund manager? There is where probably, because I know a lot of fund managers in person, I keep talking to them. That is why I have a fair bit of idea how his thinking is. If his thinking is matching with my thinking, then probably, and he has been consistent in his approach, then I will say that, yeah, I mean, my money is in safe hands. If I'm not trusting the person who is actually managing my money, why would I keep putting in that kind of a mutual fund just for the hope कि mutual fund में तो पैसा बन ही जाएगा ना? Eventually सब बोलते हैं 10 से 12% तो over the period बन ही जाता है. That's wrong. Portfolio changes month on month. This is again very important. Now, mutual funds will only actually give you portfolio. I mean the details of the portfolio for every end of the month. And they publish it somewhere on 7th or 8th of the subsequent month. So for example, for the June portfolio, howsoever portfolio is looking as on 30th June will be published on their websites by 7th or 8th of July, 6th, 7th, 8th of July. So first of all, it's a 1 week lag. Secondly, you do not know what has happened in the entire month, right? So that's a kind of an opacity, which actually, again, I am just talking about wealth baskets over here, where we are trying to overcome that, because in wealth baskets, all the stocks come instantly into your account. You know what you have invested into. Now you tell me how many people will be actually interested in go to the MF website and see what are the top 5 holdings or 10 holdings. If someone over here in the audience has been investing in any kind of a mutual fund, if I ask you what are the top 5 holdings, obviously you will tell HDFC Bank to hona hi hai sab mein, wo to sabka answer correct ho jayega. But do you know what kind of an allocation is made towards HDFC Bank, as if that's the number 1 holding in your mutual fund, or which is the second one, third one? Large cap may still it's okay. A lot of these guys will have HDFCs or ICICI banks or all these things. But if I ask you in the small cap, which is the largest holding in the small cap in your small cap which you are holding, you won't be able to tell, and you won't be able to actually monitor them month on month. But I do, and what I try to do is, in the advanced kind of a thing, is that I will listen to the fund manager, because fund managers keeps on coming on CNBC and ET Now and all those news channels, and they will give their views. What do they think that is going to happen, which sectors are going to come, whatever they have been saying. If not on news, just search on YouTube. There will be a lot of interviews, recent interviews. Whatever they are saying, are they implementing in their portfolios or not? वो हिंदी में कहते हैं ना, कथनी करनी में फर्क. I mean, are they following what they are preaching is what I would want to say. If someone is saying in March 2020 or April 2020 that we think that pharma stocks are going to outperform, I would want to see that whether they in March or April or May, whether they went overweight pharma or not. So I would want to judge them that TV pe to aap keh rahe ho that I prefer pharma, but going back you are not doing changes in your own portfolio. So I would also judge these small things, And then obviously, if I have a certain idea which sectors are going to do well, cyclical analysis, this and that. And if I see that, boss, you are still very much bullish on banks, but I am not bullish on banks. You are still overweight banks. I am not overweight banks in my approach. Then I would want to reconsider, These are all exit kind of a approach, which I am going to tell you. I'm telling you guys, these are exit in the advanced stage, which you might not be able to figure out. So I will also tell you exit in the beginner and the medium phase as well when I go through the website, and it's already about 5:10. I need to wrap it up quickly. Again, I've just exceeded time. Then their own views, bata diya, and then volatility measures. Now, volatility measures will come when I'll share that stuff with you. So quickly, guys, I'll just share my okay, questions again I'll take towards guys. Two websites which I generally follow is you guys are not able to see my screen, correct? One is my favorite is Value Research, because it has a great UI, simple UI. But if you want to understand something in great detail, morningstar.in is your website to look at. Just type in the chat if you are able to look at my my screen. Yes, thanks. So go to morningstar.in, and go to mutual funds. Now quickly, just see this, how this is happening. There are a lot of great articles on Value Research online, plus Morningstar. If you get time, if you are interested to learn more and more about mutual funds, do read these kind of things, like SEBI hikes overseas investment limit for MS. अभी तुम लोग बोलोगे मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ता है? How to invest your first mutual funds? इसमें तो पड़ता है ना फर्क. So try to kind of read these things. This is nothing. Whatever I am telling you is also, I keep reading all these stuff and my own practical experiences. Anyways, under mutual funds, go to screen funds. If you want to select which mutual fund you need to buy, right? This is for that, not for exit. Exit, I'll come after this quickly. Tapan, you are right. And this is what actually I was also observing today. When I thought that it is going to be the same kind of thing, but they've actually, and not even Morningstar, even Value Research online UI changed 6-8 months back, and it has become very, very painful. Guys, fund universe, quickly. We only want India open-ended fund, right? Because this is being recorded, you can see later on. Don't need to do it yourself. Fund company, we will want all of them, because we do not want to keep only certain names. Distribution, income or growth. Growth we'll select. As I told you, income is nothing but again the same thing as dividend plan. Morningstar rating, no, we'll do our own ratings. I don't want to believe on Morningstar. Ongoing charge, this is basically expense ratio, but let it be. I don't want to give charges and all over here. Management style, active, passive. Let's only consider active as of now. Let's assume we are going to look at mid-cap funds, right? We are going to select a mid-cap fund. Fund size. Now this is important. Now let me come to that point. The fund size, is that important? I would believe that fund sizes for a mid-cap fund should be somewhere below 10,000 crores, right? 10,000 crores is my kind of a shaky a cap for a mid-cap fund. For a small cap, I have 5,000 to 6,000 crores. For a large cap, I don't care. Now, why this kind of a thing is because in mid cap or a small cap, the thing is that the companies they are investing into have a smaller market cap. If there is a fund with a 20,000 crore AUM of a mid cap, boss, they need to deploy it, right? Maximum cash they can keep is by regulations is I think 10% if I'm not wrong. So 18,000 crore cash money they need to deploy. Now where are they going to deploy when you have made a stringent regulation that 65% of that the AUM needs to be invested into 150 companies, which is rank 101 to 250, which defines your mid cap. Remaining 35% you can do in large and small cap. That's fine. The second thing is let's consider a small cap fund. When you are considering a small cap and the fund size is 10,000 crore, for example, and small caps are very volatile. You know, if there is a bad news, if there's a corporate governance issue comes up, which probably a fund might want to just exit all the holdings quickly. If they are a 10,000 crore market AUM fund, and if they have only 1%, let's say only 2% weightage in a certain small cap, which is how much? 200 CR, right? Now in 200 CR, which is huge, and this small cap company might have a market cap of, let's say 1,000 crore. So out of 1,000 crore market cap company, if they quickly want to sell out to 200 crores worth of stocks, it is going to impact your share price. And when they are going to sell it, they might not get buyers. There might be a lower circuit. Then they'll tomorrow again start trying it out. So after all these, all these issues, I think it becomes very difficult to manage a large fund in a small cap is what my belief is, and then for mid cap as well. So that is why the thresholds. But now what has happened recently is that, you believe it or not, in India, we do not have many options to invest in. If you leave aside the top 100 stocks, which are very liquid, or 150, there are no great options down the line. As I said, there are about 4,500, 5,000 listed stock on BSE. If you only look at NSE, which has more liquidity, on NSE there would be what, 2,000, 2,100 stocks. Out of that, the good liquid stocks are only in good fundamental quality, liquid, this and that. That stocks might not be even 1,000. Let's say might be 750, 800. All the mutual funds are going to invest into those 700-800 companies only in certain ratios, whatever proportion allocation the fund manager works out. And then because the markets are just going up, and you guys are also like, many of you will start earning, many of you will keep on increasing your SIP amount. Eventually, there is so much of money which will come into MFs that where are they going to invest into? So ultimately, वही 750-800 stocks में पैसा जाना है. So the point is that AUM keeps on increasing and increasing, but you don't have any option. And why I'm telling you is that two funds which I like in mid cap segment, I just noticed both have gone above 10,000 recently. Am I going to stop funds into investing into that? I don't know. Let's discuss this. Yield, okay, I don't care about yield. Then there is something called show more, where I just saw that, okay, we only going to select equity. Now, if you look at this table keeps on updating itself, and it started with 12,000, 13,000 funds. We are down to 2,162. Okay, that is also too high. Now, problem is that, even for the same fund, they have a direct plan and a regular plan listed together. What also I can do is we are looking at mid cap fund, right? So let's put in 1 billion is what? This is I don't know if this is even US dollar or something, but we can put in some kind of a filter over here as well. Global class is, no, I don't want global. Share class, okay, management fee only. I don't want distribution fee. So this will only come direct, as I told you. Now, if you see, we are down to, okay, this is not getting updated. So just look at this, and this is because the UI has changed and probably my net is also not working. This should get updated in a while. Just look at this overview, short-term performance and long-term performance. Go to long-term performance and just see 3-year, 5-year, 10-year annualized returns. Once you put in more filters and do your experiment at your own end, keep putting these kind of things and keep doing all your experiments, you will see that this list continues to grow smaller and smaller. And then try to, kind of run these funds, compare these funds on the basis of 5-year and 10-year returns. They also give you fees. They also give you a little bit of idea on the portfolio. This is equity box style. What does this say is that you will get to know in detail when we go and discuss one of the funds, and average market capitalization of the fund. And then there is the final tab called risk. Now we'll discuss all these 5 or 6 parameters if we pick one certain fund. When I was doing this, see, now that has come down to 287. Very good. Now, when I was just analyzing these a bit, I just saw that I wanted to discuss Axis Midcap Fund with you guys, because that's something which a lot of people are saying, that Axis Midcap Fund is something which you need to buy in a small cap, mid cap space, and the problem is that it's not getting updated. So by the time guys it get updated, I'll just quickly go through some questions so that we don't waste our time. Dhrumit is asking, is CAGR and annualized return the same? So Dhrumit, generally what happens, CAGR ideally should be done when your the horizon period is more than 1 year. So you do an average compounded over so many years. But if there is something returns over 3 months, people just annualize it by multiplying it by 4 or doing some kind of a raising to the power. So basically end result is same, but I generally do not like to show CAGR if the fund is existing in just less than 1 year time period. Please discuss ESG mutual funds. Atul is asking. This has still not updated. What is happening here? That is why this technology thing. No? Okay. Where can we find the rolling returns? Suraj is asking. Suraj, rolling returns, not many. I don't know. Morningstar doesn't give. Value Research Online doesn't give. Some wealth management firms or some new age companies might be giving that. I don't know. If someone knows, please type it out. Tax saving MS versus other MS. ELSS is your tax saving funds, and I would suggest go for an ELSS, complete your 80C investment threshold. And this has again come up. Okay, great. Now, so I wanted to discuss this fund with you guys. Axis Midcap, as I already told you. The problem here is that when I was clicking this before the session to look at it, it was giving an error. Now this error might be because of the weekend, update or something, but need not worry. You can directly go from here and then open an account, open, this fund. But here what I'll do is I'll just quickly try to show Axis Midcap directly from the drop down. And if it doesn't come from the drop down, then we are very, very unlucky. Okay. Meanwhile, again, go back to chats. Which is the best ELS scheme to invest? Sarthak, this is what we are discussing. You need to work it out yourself, which is the best scheme. I can give you some names, but this is not why we are holding this session. How much of a portfolio overlap is acceptable between two funds? Anmol, I think 30-40% should be good. If it's a large cap, if you take a large cap and an index fund, that would be 70-80% very bad. But if you're taking two mid caps or two small caps, more than 30% should be a red flag. Why are we concerned about the expense ratio when performance of MS is already reported net of expense ratio? Utkarsh, very good point. That is, I mean, people see both and then they get confused, because expense ratios. I think this is an Indian mentality. We do not want to pay money, right? We do not want to pay for services, is what I have felt. And me being in this industry for long, and now that I have moved into the advisory bit of it, people are generally not even willing to pay 0.5% or 1% for the service they are getting. You do paisa is what the thing is. But you are right, yeah. People should not see. Explain AUM thing again. Why is it important? Tejas, I'll take it later on. Is it good to use apps like Grow? Simran, it's good. But you are just trusting a third party. Are you comfortable trusting a third party with your data? If yes, then okay, because you are anyways giving data to Gmail, to Google, Facebooks, and all these Amazons and all. If you are okay giving those to international companies, I think it's okay to give to Indian companies. But then these guys are startup guys, so you need to be a little bit kind of cautious. For mid and small cap, are index funds good, like Motilal Oswal 250? I generally would say India has a lot more scope to earn active returns in the mid and small cap space. So I would generally avoid index funds in the mid and small cap space, guys. Which is advisable from Nifty index fund and Nifty Bs? Nifty Bs is what ETF you're talking about, Sarthak. If that's the case, I mean, see, if index funds, you can put an SIP. And if you are doing an ETF, then you have to sit in front of the terminal to do an active kind of a trading. If you are an active trader, go for ETFs. Whenever market is tanking, you just buy some units. But you can't put an SIP until and unless you make use of that Zerodha's new feature where you can do SIP of stocks also. How to calculate fund overlap? There are few sites for it where you can only compare two funds overlaps, not more than that. I think Invesza.com or something like that. Otherwise, all the companies have actually paid features when they are doing. So Wealth Basket has a feature called Portfolio Optimizer, where you can find the overlaps. And initially, it is free for at least Zerodha customers as of now, only a partial bit of it. If you have a Zerodha account, you can actually use a Portfolio Optimizer free of cost. But if you want to use the entire feature of it, then you obviously need to pay a certain fees to the broker. Okay, RTA apps is fine. Tapan, can we go through the registrars like KFinMart, MyCamps? Are they still not preferred over AMC? I think they are fine. They are good. I made my own account with MyCamps, but that was 2 years back, and I noticed that not all AMCs were in their kind of network. So they only had around 20-25 MS. So I think Mirai was not there. I don't know whether they have included that or not, but I gave up on that. I think, guys, we are ready with the website. So let's go and type Axis Midcap Fund, and we'll only see direct then growth. So quickly in next 6-7 minutes, we'll complete that, and we'll take the questions again for 10-15 minutes. Guys, please don't repeat your questions, because I'm anyways I have a habit to go through all the questions. So only just read all the questions and then see that if that already been asked. So avoid that. So, okay, guys, this screen will open up when you are opening up any kind of a mid-cap fund, any kind of an equity fund, debt fund, or whatever in the Morningstar website. There they'll give NAV. This is not of concern to you. They'll give total assets. It's of concern to you. Currently, total asset of Axis Midcap Fund is 11,830 crores. So this is breaching my midcap AUM threshold of 10,000 crores, but not by much. We'll come to that. They have not mentioned adjusted expense ratio. I think they have mentioned, but here they generally miss it out. Simultaneously, I'll also open a value research online tab for you whenever you are analyzing. Open both of them and go to Axis Midcap here as well, because some information can easily be retrieved from value research online because of the UI and all. And Morningstar throws a lot of information, so that's also important. Now here, if you go down, the expense ratio will be mentioned over here, which is your 0.52% for a direct fund. This is a direct fund, direct tab. 0.52% is okay with you guys? If yes, then let's go ahead. Load is exit load. If you exit before 1 year probably, then you have to pay 1% of the amount as penalty. Category, mid-cap, investment style. This box is actually, this says large growth, although it's a mid-cap fund, but their style might have been drifted towards a large cap mode. That is why Morningstar is classified into a large growth. Generally, you need a mid growth if you want to invest into a mid-cap fund, ideally. Minimum investment amount and turnover. Turnover is in a year how many stocks are churned, right? Lower the number, better it is. I think lower than 50-60% is good for a mid-cap kind of a fund. This is an overview basically, right? If this is an overview, the subsequent tabs will give you detail of all this. So I'm going into details of all this directly. If you go to the portfolio, again, that is very important. As I said, portfolio mix, even the moderate guy should look at the portfolio mix kind of stuff. How much expense ratio is actually good, Simran? I mean, anything less than 1% for a direct fund should be good, yeah. But if you are getting into a fund like a FOF, which is your international fund, even if you get 2%, then that's fine, but ideally for a large cap index fund should be less than 0.1, 0.2%. Mid cap is okay between 0.5, 0.7%. Small cap should be okay till 1%. That is what I am looking at. And this is all direct funds, not regular funds. Okay, now let's look at this asset allocation. Obviously, Morningstar is a US website, so US equity that they actually classify as US, non-US. Non-US means all India. 93.51% is invested into. The remaining is in cash currently. 6.6% in cash, 6.5% in cash. Guys, you get a hint out of it. If you keep on analyzing it month after month, or kind of a very long period, keep checking the cash levels. Some funds will try to be more at cash levels if they see that the market is getting overheated. I think 10%, as I said, is the maximum limit. So 6.5% is towards the higher side. Is Axis thinking that market is going to come down? And that is why moving more towards cash. This is where I have a problem with the MF. It's 19 June. Again, the market has reached till 15,800 and coming down. You will never know the cash position till 7th of July. So I would want to know that number, but I can't. That's the problem. If you look at category, this category column, in the category column, 2.27% is in cash, although 4.94% is in others, and others I would believe is short-term funds or more market, kind of money market instruments, which is actually similar to cash. So if the category is also expecting around 7% of, kind of cash levels, then you know that entire mutual fund industry, what they are thinking. This is an important chart where they will give you that what is the exposure of this fund to different sectors and what is the category exposure. So if you see Axis Midcap is underweight basic materials, consumer cyclical, almost equally weight financial services, real estate, they don't have any exposure. What are they overweight then? Communication services is hardly anything. Energy, they don't have anything. Industrials, they are almost equal weight. Technology is where they have made the difference. Technology is 7.4% for the category. They are at 14.4%, almost double. So they are betting big on the technology space. Are you? Do you think as an individual that technology is the space to bet big on right now? Maybe yes, maybe no. If yes, then this is a fund for you. If no, then this is not a fund for you. This is how you actually, think when you are getting into a fund. The only thing is that over a long period of time, 10 years, 5 years, 7 years holding period, ऐसे कैसे करोगे यार? मतलब हर महीना you are not going to check this out, right? And you are not going to form your views. This is where your exit strategy will come into play. Consumer defensive, they are almost a little overweight. Healthcare, they are almost equal weight. And utilities, they are equal weight. So basically, they are underweight basic materials, consumer cyclicals, and real estate, and they are overweight. इन तीनों का जो भी underweight है वो पूरा technology में डाल दिया. This is something which you can ignore. Financial metrics, not much important. They are just doing a little bit of more research. Sustainability rating you can ignore, and then you can get into this kind of a chart. So they have just depicted everything through this kind of a stock style, they say, map, where this will be their grid: large cap, mid cap, small cap, value, blended, and growth. So as we said, this fund is growth, that we knew that, right? But we were expecting more towards mid cap, but because their holding and their AUM has become so large that they have kind of drifted towards a little bit of a large cap kind of thing, right? So that's the thing. Ideally, we would want a mid cap fund to be somewhere over this portion, that yellow thing. So yellow thing is what mid cap index as of this date, and red ellipse is your S&P BSE mid cap index. So this is mid cap as I don't know. This might be some particular mid cap TR INR, which is BSE mid cap at 200 stocks, 100, I don't know. And this mid cap ideally should be 150 stocks, is what I think. And you can look at numbers wise also, weight wise also. Then we go to a detailed portfolio quickly. So in the detailed portfolio, category percentage, cat percentage, category percent, cat percent. Okay, very good. How are you deciding underweight and overweight? Prashant, I am not deciding. I am seeing that if category is 25% and they are invested 20%, then they are underweight category, right? Category would means the average of all the other mid-cap funds where they are putting. Ideally, Morningstar should also have given another column where they should have given that out of Nifty mid-cap or BSE mid-cap, what is the proportion of those 150 stocks? What is the proportion of basic materials into that? So then we could have actually compared with index benchmarks also. But they have not given, so we are just making use of the category average numbers as well. Other questions later on. Okay. Now this is the top 10 holdings, and if you want to see more holdings, you can go there. If you are an expert, I mean, see, I may be an expert, but I might not have time. So मुझे समझ में सब आ रहा है, हो क्या रहा है, but I can't manage the money, manage the stocks, direct stocks on my own. And hence I would look into the mutual fund, which I want you guys to be also go in that direction, that you guys should understand. But if you do not have time, go into a mutual fund kind of thing. Cholamandalam Investment and Finance Company is their top holding with a portfolio weight of 5%, and they first bought it on February 29, 2016. February 29 nahi hoga, somewhere in February hoga, but because, as I said, the last day only you have to declare. That is why they have given February 29. But these guys are holding this stock for what, 5 years now, for 5.5 years. That's the conviction they have. Now you need to see that how has Cholamandalam Investment Finance actually performed in the last 5 years. They have shown in previous 4 periods. Obviously, it increased and it is now coming down because finance sector is showing a little bit of resilience in the little bit of weakness in the last one period. That's okay. But they have held it for a long time. You need to check how their performance has been. What a conviction! Again, Voltas. 3.87% holding since May 31, 2017. Holding period 4 years, more than 4 years. Astral, November 30, 2017. Holding period pretty long. So if you just see which is the most recent buy of this stock in the top 10 holdings is Crompton Greaves Consumer Electricals. This is just after Corona's impact was getting over. And then the second one bought in 2020 is Coforge. So apart from these two stocks, basically next if we go, there is no 2021 stock over here, at least in the top till Bata. Oh, okay, they have more. So these might be what, around 25? Now this can be looked as a positive as well as a negative. You are not churning your portfolios in order to capture the changing cycles. The pharma stocks have just given up to super returns, but Axis hasn't. Axis doesn't have what all pharma stocks does it have in the top stocks? Let's see. Bajaj Finance, HDFC Bank, Supreme, Avenue, Mindtree, Ipca Lab. Ipca Lab is a pharma stock, right? So Ipca Lab they had added in July 31, 2019, and it has done good. If you see that this chart, but why not more? Tata Consumer has done brilliant. Great that they picked it up before the virus thing started. Endurance is with them for City Union Bank is there since past 6 years. City Union Bank, I don't know. I don't follow it. I don't know how his performance is, but 6 years should be great performance. I hope. Otherwise, there is no point. If you go to second tab, then probably you might find some stocks. Okay, February 28, 2021, they had Cummins. Right, March 31st, they added Persistent Systems. Persistent System, I myself added last year. I'm not saying that's bad. Obviously, they have to see a lot of other things. But this is how you might have certain views on the stocks, and then you see equity holdings 57 stocks. How are 57 stocks in the portfolio? Too much of diversification. But if you go across all the mid cap kind of schemes, they generally have stocks between 50 to 70. So 57 is somewhere around the average, and this is where another concern with mutual funds is that they have to have so many stocks in them, diversification. I mean, 57 stocks में आप सिर्फ एक fund में ले रहे हो. If you are buying two mid cap funds, your mid cap, even at a 30% overlap, your mid cap might be what, around 80 stocks, 80 to 90 stocks. Is it good? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, top 10 percent assets in top 10 holdings, 34% is in top 10 holdings, and remaining 66% is in 47 holdings. Don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable, at least with this data. Right, now let's go to the next step, performance. This is very important, and this is where you guys will actually, beginners actually make their life. Okay, now look at this, and this is where my exit strategy, my personal exit strategy, nowhere mentioned anywhere, but my thesis. Just look at this row, quartile rank. Now, quartile rank, guys, I'll just take you through one more important thing before coming into that. Sorry, I missed it out. I'm going back to overview because this is where I thought आगे मिलेगा, but आगे नहीं आएगा ये. Overview में there is something over here which is people, fund managers. The most important aspect, more than the performance, more than the portfolio mix and all. Look at this. Look at manager timeline. Shreyas Devalkar. Shreyas Devalkar is managing this portfolio. Remember the date because now we are going to discuss these dates with performance when we go to the performance tab. Shreyas Devalkar is kind of managing this portfolio since November 23rd, 2016 till present. 5 years around he has been with the fund. Hitesh Das, maybe his junior, maybe I don't know. Hitesh, he just joined 6 months back. Let's ignore Hitesh as of now. Let's concentrate on Shreyas. This fund was somewhere started in, I can see if this is 2009, this is 2010. Somewhere in 2010, this fund started, commenced. I mean, they might have given, kab chalu hua tha ye fund. Okay, let's not get into that. Okay. Then Pankaj Murarka managed it from 2010 till 2014, 4 years. Then he might have left, he might have quit, whatever might have happened. Then the fund was taken over by someone called Sudhanshu Asthana, and he managed this fund for about 1.5 years. Again, he left, he quit, whatever. Then Ashish Nayak took it over. Maybe I think for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Guys, what is happening? I mean, why so much of, kind of churn in the fund managers? Very uncomfortable. I would be very uncomfortable with putting money into Axis Midcap till 2016. But then came Shreyas Devalkar on 23rd November 2016. And I have listen to a lot of interviews from Shreyas Devalkar, lot of stuff from Shreyas. Amazing guy, amazing guy. I mean, you should listen to him. You should listen to his thesis and everything, which is where you actually, kind of give those red flags a little bit of benefit of doubt. So you need to have that kind of weightage. What weightage you would put on a fund manager if you know him, and what weightage would you put on the portfolio mix, which is a very short term and kind of something which gets churned up a lot. And he has been with the fund for 5 years now. Now let's go to the performance step, and then we'll see what impact Shreyas has brought to the fund, which probably, might be lacking or not lacking. We'll have to see. Now, if you look at this quartile rank, so what Morningstar does is it takes all the mid-cap fund in the category and ranks according to the performance. Quartile, you understand, top 25%, then 26 to 50, then 51 to 75, and the highest or the bottom 25%. Now, this is quartile. In 2014, the fund, remember, the fund was started somewhere, what? Okay, 2010-11 कुछ था, but data नहीं है इसका. So 2014 में अभी तक Shreyas Devalkar hasn't come. The fund was second quartile rank. Then the fund became fourth quartile in 2015 calendar year. Then the fund became again fourth quartile. It remained fourth quartile in the calendar year 2016. Shreyas Devalkar had come in 2016 November, so almost towards the end of the year. He would have taken time to understand the objectives of the fund, taken time to get along with the team, make some strategies, churn some portfolios, because पूरा portfolio तो एक साथ निकाल के ले नहीं आएगा. So gradually this will happen. 2017, the fund was third quartile, and 2017 was one of the super years for the equity market. At least fourth से third हुआ. 2018 में finally the fund was the best quartile in its category. 2019 में it maintained to be the best quartile fund. 2020 में it maintained to be the best quartile fund. 3 बार, 1, 2, 3 times it was amongst the top quartile fund after Shreyas Devalkar had come and made some changes in 2016 or 17. YTD, 6 months. 6 months have not passed. This data is only till maybe May 31st. It's still third. I would say not great, but let us give some more time. Let us give some more time is the most important line of this webinar. People will see 3 months of underperformance, 4 months of underperformance, will see कि यार ये तो perform ही नहीं कर रहा है. Let's exit. Right? No. ऐसे exit नहीं होता है. He has to change the entire landscape of the portfolio, boss, if the cycle is changing. Not all stocks will work all the time. So if you look at this very carefully, he has not performed well in 2017 and 2021 when the market has done superbly well. But this fund has done so good in 2018 and 19 and 20. 20, okay, I would say that the markets were rising in the second half of the year. But 18 and 19 were the year when the markets, the mid-caps had crashed. And in those years, he has given positive returns. You can go back and check. Lot of these in 2018 and 19, lot of funds had given, index had given negative. See, fund has given 12.80 in 2019, which is plus 10.55 from category. Means the category had only given what? 2.25% returns. Index, 14.86% plus index. Means index was actually negative 2.06%. And this outperformed the index by 14.86% and category by 10.55%. Same results goes in 2018. Right? 2017 he underperformed. Why? Because his portfolio is defensive. He will outperform when the market is going down. He will not be able to outperform when the market is anyways going up. So you have to choose. This is a low beta. This is called what? This is a low beta portfolio. If you are in the Telegram group, I had asked this question, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, what do you want? High returns or low risk? That's your subjective call. What do you want? Right? When the market crashes, funds like Axis will perform well. See, I am not saying go tomorrow and buy an Axis mid-cap fund. I'm just telling you how to analyze. I'll also want to show PGIM after this, although we are above time and people are dropping again. Okay, थोड़ा सा recording देख लेना. But PGIM is something which I need to. Guys, my Telegram group name is Perspectives by Vaibhav. You can type that and search for it. Otherwise, if someone can just share the link here, I am not willing to experiment with my slow net. Sir, how many MF one should have in portfolio? Shivam, you joined late, I think. I just covered this. do join the Telegram group, guys. Amazing conversations goes on. Sometimes I am surprised as to the level of conversations people have. This is not a one-way channel which a lot of people will have, that they'll only type in, you are only going to listen to it or read it. Anyone can opine on anything if that is kind of done in finance related topics. You can discuss over there. For a mid cap fund, what are the category percentages? Guys, I'm very sorry I had to abort the video because my network connection was bad, and now what I've just decided to do is that remaining 10-15 minutes of the video, I'll just record it over here. Well, as you can see on the YouTube, I've just appended this video to the previous part. So there was one thing which I think was left, an important thing was left, is that I was discussing that I want to also add and compare another mid-cap fund, which is which is PGIM mid-cap, because a lot of people have asked because of this. It's super performance over last so many years, consistently beating the index. But the only thing was and is in a lot of people's mind is that PGIM is not a very big AMC, right? Big asset management company. So do we trust it? It's a foreign company. It's a foreign asset management company, and people are very wary of that. What will happen if something like Franklin Templeton issue might happen to it, or a lot of these foreign AMCs are just packing up and selling off their businesses to domestic companies and then leaving away. So what is the future? I mean, should we actually go after these smaller funds? As I said, that the fund size matters a lot. 10,000, 11,000, 12,000 crores AUM sizes is for Axis as well as for Kotak Emerging Equities. So should we look at it? PGIM. So let's do the again same kind of an analysis, and let me just share my screen with you. And let's analyze PGIM using the same set of parameters which we did for Axis Midcap Fund. One other thing which I'm very sad about is that I lost all the questions, which I was getting on the chat, and unfortunately I have missed out on those. But I would request anybody who is watching this video, if you have questions, if you had asked the question in the chat, after this video is uploaded, I will also send an email to all the registrants, all the participants who actually attended it, with the link, like I sent for the asset allocation session, where I will be inviting you to ask your questions, and I promise to answer each and every question whichever is asked. So that's where so I'm very sorry for whatever happened, guys. Something which I couldn't control. So PGIM India Midcap Opportunities Fund Direct Growth. Let's look at this one. Okay. Great. So is this great? I mean, it's a 5-star rated fund by Morningstar. Total assets 16.2 billion rupees, which is 1620 crores, way lower than what it was for Axis. And another popular fund in this category, Kotak Emerging Equities. I think Kotak Emerging Equities is at 12,000 crores. 1,620 crores, obviously, because not many people are willing to get into it even after a good performance, and etc. Let's leave all these things, as you guys understand what all these things are. The turnover, look at the turnover. Turnover is 176%. They're actually churning out their entire portfolio, much more than kind of completely churning out, and even like churning out multiple times a year. Is this good, bad? I think 176 is too high. Let's go and see what is the story beneath it. 98.87% they are invested currently. 1.13% is in cash. This is opposite to what we were discussing for Axis. Axis was around 6.5%. So these guys still think that there's a lot of meat left in the equity markets still. Okay. People, just look at people. Now, this is where I am not very comfortable with. How many fund managers? So look at this. The fund inception date was 2013. Okay, no problem. Brahma Prakash Singh and Mahendra Jaju together started it. Now, I am not very sure that what I remember is that PGIM acquired I think some other fund. I am not actually very I am not able to recollect it, which was that. You can just Google it out. I'll also Google it out after the video, but can't add in the video. But Brahma Prakash Singh and Mahendra Jaju actually started off the fund, managing the fund. But but Mahendra Jaju left in, I think, what, about 6-8 months, and then Ritesh Jain took it over. Ritesh Jain and Brahma Prakash Singh managed it till 2015 mid, post which Akash Singhania came in for about 2 to 3 months. I think this was the time when that acquisition might have happened or something like that. And then when Akash Singhania left, then the fund was managed by Avinash Agarwal and Kumaresh Ramakrishnan for about a year or two. For 2 years, I think, 1.5 years, and then they also quit simultaneously. And then Anirudh Naha came, and he managed the fund from end of 2017 to starting of 2000, I think 21. And then in 2021, which is very recent, he also I think, no, he is continuing, but he is joined by Vivek Sharma. So ideally, you should see the performance of this fund only since Anirudh Naha is here, which is where you can see Anirudh Naha. I don't know why they have actually broken down Anirudh into two different buckets, but I would believe that from 2017 end Anirudh is with the fund. Now let's see what is the current holding. So it has 48 holdings. Axis Midcap at 57, if you remember. This is similar kind of a percentage. Top 10 holdings in 34% is top 10 holdings. Top turnover we have discussed. Now their highest share is ICICI Bank by weight, which they have recently added. Coforge was there as well, if you remember, in Axis Midcap. Coforge they added last year. Mindtree, IT company, midcap IT company, I like this stock. Aarti Industries, I like this stock. Specialty Chemicals. Federal Bank has been doing superbly well for the last 6-8 months. And then we go into the smaller ones, Sanofi, Voltas was there as well, Max Financials, Bharat Forge and all. But obviously all these funds have been added very recently because their turnover is so high, the churn is so high, 176%, that you won't be seeing the funds which are like 2016 or a 15 or a 17, just like you saw for Axis. Good or bad? I see that this is bad because it's not a long-term holding kind of thing. I mean, you can hold it for long-term, but are they holding for long-term? I mean, that applies for them as well, right? Equities holding should be for long-term. I would really want to see that before 2020, the coronavirus, what was their holdings and what was their holding period was. Very difficult to know. I mean, there might be some databases which might be having that information, Bloomberg or something, but I do not have the access today. Anyways, let's go to the next step. Portfolio we have already seen. We are not going into that in detail now. Detailed portfolio. I think portfolio, there is one thing which we should look at it is, okay, so this thing. So this is where it lies. And this is where I was mentioning in Axis that Axis has moved into a little bit of a large cap space, but it's not much of a difference, right? Even they are somewhere over on the border only. Basic material is they are overweight. Consumer cyclical, they are very underweight, but consumer cyclical is, again, I mean, that's something, cyclical stocks, commodity stocks are people generally would want to be overweight or underweight, and there they go so wrong or so right. If they go right, obviously good, but then these guys are doing a lot of churn. I don't know whether this is still May 31st, 2021. We are at 19 June. I don't know what they might have done in the 19 days. Financial services, they are little underweight. Real estate, they have an exposure. Axis didn't have any exposure. And then they are also double in the technology space. They are at 15.15%. So what are they underweight? So they are underweight basically, okay, they do not have any consumer defensive and any utilities. So total, this is 7.2%. They are at zero. They are overweight industrials as well, which I think it's good. And technology, again, it's good. And healthcare sector, they are overweight by 1%. I think that's good because that also agrees with something which, I mean, that goes along with what I also believe, because financial services, I would also be a little underweight now. I mean, again, my own thesis, so I don't know what will happen. Don't take my word on it. Detailed portfolio would have nothing more to add to. Let's look at the performance. And the performance, if you see, okay, so they were actually underperforming the index and the category for a very, very long time. That is why it is not probably anyone's favorite. But if you look at this fund from this post corona level, they have actually, kind of started way lower, and now they are almost at the same level as the index. So the question here is that, okay, it's okay that we have not probably added it way back in 2013-14, but does this thesis support to be for the PGIM to be added now? Let's look at the quartile ranks. 2014, 15, 16, 17 till 17, lot of random people were managing it. I would not say random people, I bet, very sorry, but lot of churning was happening in the fund manager space as well. But I would rather concentrate it from the performance from 2017 and or 2018 per se. 2018, when the new fund manager 17 came in, then it was ranked, it fell down to quartile 3. It actually returned negative percentage, 14.59%. And the category average was, it actually underperformed the category average also, minus 0.26%. 2018 was bad for them. 2019 they moved to second quartile. 2020 they moved to first quartile, and even in YTD 2021 they are at first quartile. If you look at the percentile rank, they are at first rank in 2020. They are the best performing fund in 2020, and they are the second best fund in 2021 for the past 5-6 months. This is where the recency bias and effect comes into play. That is why a lot of people are saying that whether we should go for PGIM fund because of the low AUM, low expense ratio, and higher outperformance in the last couple of years. But is this sustainable? I don't know. See, I would discount the performance in the last from 2014 to 2017. Only concentrate from 2018 onwards because that is where the new fund management team might have entered into. But I'll not be very comfortable, to be honest, to put into that because first of all, obviously the AMC structure is also, a lot of acquisitions and a lot of change of management is happening. That does not give me much comfort. Morningstar might have rated it as 5. I don't know. I would rate it at that highly. And if you look at the risk and rating, which again, we'll have to go back to Axis fund as well because we missed looking at the Axis risk and rating before the video got off. If you look at this, the risk versus category is above average. The return versus category is high. Return high, good. Risk is almost high. Okay. Remember this because we are going to compare this with Axis Midcap as well. This is a very fine graph where they show where on the chart where you see risk versus return, where does PGIM lie vis-a-vis the index and category. Index obviously they have marked at the center. PGIM has higher return with the same risk, and the category has lower risk with same returns. So you can make up what the thing is. Now look at this. This is where I put in as kind of expert level or advanced level analyst who will look at market volatility measures as well. What does this say? On the upside, when the index goes up by 100, the fund makes 112. But on the downside, when the index goes up by 100, the fund goes down to 84, goes down by 84. That means that on the downside, it is also good and the upside is also good. It is capturing both sides. So when it is upside, it is giving more returns, and when it is at downside, it is not falling by that much as the index has fallen. Whereas the category, if you can see, the category on the downside is still in green. That means category is also not performing badly vis-a-vis the index, but on the upside, category is not performing that well. This is good. This is good, right? Drawdown. Look at drawdown. Maximum drawdown of the fund was at 28.45%. Whereas the category was at 31.69% and the index was at 36.43%. So by the basis of the drawdown, also they are doing good. And when was that drawdown valley date? March 31st, 2020. Everybody has that. So drawdown peak date was, that means that they made the high on May 1st, 2018. And then from May 2018 till March 31, 2020 was 23 months period was the drawdown date. So drawdown chart generally is measuring from your peak to your the lowest, which is called the valley. So whatever that drawdown is from the highest point to lowest point is called drawdown basically. So fund gave 28.45% negative returns in these 23 months, which was their maximum drawdown. Now let's look at the same thing and let's see their alpha, beta, R square. You know about all these things, right? Beta is 0.97, which is almost close to the market. That's fine. And now let's look at Axis Midcap again for this analysis for the risk and rating, because you missed last time in the session. Now, as you know that this session is not being attended by anybody, and I'm making a video on my own. Great. So let's go to risk and rating and see the numbers over there. Now look at this: risk low versus category, return high. Now, this is a combination everybody kind of goes for. I mean, lowest risk with highest returns. Look at this chart. This is the red one, is the index at the center, in the return versus risk. Now you need lesser risk and higher return, and this is the quadrant where your scheme should lie, and this is where the Axis scheme is also, right? It is like returning higher returns with taking lesser risk. Beta is only 0.75%, and this is where the reason is that. But look at the capture ratios. Now their capture ratios, as I said, on the downside, when the index is going down by 100, they are only going down by 61. This is why they outperformed in 2018 and 19. And on the upside, they are not being able to capture that upside. That is why they are not performing well in 2017 and 2021, when the markets have gone up and they have not been able to go up. But the difference between 89 and 61 is huge, right? One is only like 11% or 11% down, and one is like 39%, kind of 61. I mean, that would be a little higher than that. On the downside, they are not falling that much as the index is falling. Look at their drawdown maximum. So again, their drawdown was only for 2 months. They made a peak on February 1st, 2020. And their drawdown valley date was March 31st, 2020. Every fund, I would think that valley date would be the same last year. But maximum drawdown duration, this is very important. Lower the duration, better it is. Lower the max drawdown duration, much better it is. 23 months was huge. And again, they were only 21.32% maximum drawdown, whereas that fund, PGIM, was 28-29% around, even if it was doing much better than the category and the index. So guys, you need to understand, see, Axis Midcap is completely a different kind of fund. This is a kind of a fund where you can be safe in bad times. So I would just suggest, if you are thinking to buy an Axis Midcap fund, do take another Axis Midcap fund. Do take another midcap fund which is a little aggressive, which might have a little higher beta, so that you actually counterbalance your risk into that, right? So this is the approach. I mean, one fund, Axis, may perform better in bearish periods, and in the bullish periods you have another fund. And then you also, as I suggested, you should have an exposure to small cap as well. So this is how you do the portfolio allocation. You need to mix and match. You need to have two funds, and both should have different qualities under the same bracket. Even if you're going with one mid-cap fund, look for a small cap fund which has a little higher weightage towards mid-cap as well. So SBI, a small cap fund, what I remember is that 30% is mid-cap and 70% is small cap. So by that also you are well covered into the mid-cap space. Just check for the overlaps. So with this, I think you guys would be able to, kind of now analyze mutual funds by yourself, analyze when to exit. One exit method is obviously goal-based. Once your goal is done, you have fulfilled the goal, then you move out. But that's again goal-based investing. In the non-goal-based approach, this can be one of the ways to gauge the. Okay, I did not tell you that how much time of underperformance you should actually kind of look into. I would say two years, or 1.5 years, 18 months. If for 18 months to 24 months the fund has dropped from first quartile, second quartile to anywhere in the third or fourth quartile. So this is the logic. I mean, that has come towards the very end of this video. I'm very sorry. I mean, I don't know how many people would be sticking around till this point. But the idea should be, you need to give the fund at least 18 to 24 months to see a continuous underperformance. If the fund slips into third or fourth quartile consecutively for 18 to 24 months, then you think to exit that fund. Because I believe in that period, 18 to 24 to be at the safe side, but many people are impatient these days. They won't be willing to take a 24-month waiting period for their fund to actually, kind of start performing again. So even if it is 18 to 24 months and the fund is continuously in third and the fourth quartile, you may think to exit it, right? So that can be one idea. So of exiting, and not 3 months, not 4 months of underperformance. Sorry, boss, that can't be done. Even 12-month underperformance is not something which you should actually be worried about. You need to give more time. So that's it. I think that should be enough. Apart from that, I just have few more things to probably add over here. Is that basically international funds as well we were discussing. ELSS, I saw some questions around that. So ELSS, definitely go for ELSS, and ELSS you need to top up till you reach that ATC limit of 1,50,000 after taking into account your LIC premium and EPF. But then there are many people who also ask that ELSS funds have actually outperformed many times even in normal circumstances. You put in a little more money than your ATC contribution? Yes, you should. You can. I mean, you can, and you should also, because that lock-in concept of the 3 years actually work in favor of that ELSS funds. So performance generally is little better than even the normal non-ELSS funds for these guys. So that's your call. Which funds to be taken? See, I'm not going to discuss any and recommend any funds over here in this video. After this analysis, I think you should be able to figure that out by yourself. International funds, as I said, that exposure should be there. I have two international funds with me: US exposure and China exposure. I have, and through Parag Parikh, there is a global exposure as well. Parag Parikh is again one of my favorite funds, just because because of the fund managers. I know them personally, and I know and I trust them. I mean, whatever calls they are taking, I know that these guys are great guys, and hence I'm trusting them with my money. That is the reason. An international exposure obviously is the cherry on the cake. So an exposure to stocks like Facebook and Suzuki and all is being provided from there, which obviously I would get Suzuki from I think China fund and a US fund as well. So that's one thing. Apart from that, I don't remember any such questions. So I would request you guys, if you have more questions on that, either in the comment section on this YouTube video, you can ask, I will respond, or you can ask on the email. I would prefer if you ask in the comment section, because I can answer each questions and everybody can see the responses. So I would prefer if you ask here only rather than email, because email I'll have to individually send you replies and there may be overlaps of questions. So with that, thank you. And again, once sorry again for that kind of a disruption that happened. And I will see you again in one of the next videos. Most likely it would be debt mutual funds. Bye bye guys. Take care.